Hello and welcome to Insight Germany. My guest today is a musician who's originally from Canada but came to live in Oldenburg in the north of Germany way back in 1983. He's now been living in Germany for over 30 years. Martin Gallop is a singer-songwriter, and in the course of this interview he will be playing live and exclusively for this programme a song or two from his brand new album, which is called Most Beautiful Song. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Robin.
I have to ask you straight away about your music, but I won't ask you so much about this contraption that we have here that is a part of your performance.
A true thing of beauty, don't you think?
I mean, I recognise the old gramophone, which is very beautiful.
Isn't it?
And I know you're going... That comes in the report about you later. But,
okay.
Tell us about that.
This thing that looks sort of like garden hose and is, in a way, is actually also what you would call in German Zeitschlauch, which is time hose in English.
A time hose.
Time hose. The problem is I made this record, which is here down beside the gramophone, and it's a brilliant record, beautifully produced by myself. And there are a lot of songs on it that have a sort of nostalgic kind of feel to them. And I've been thinking, how can I evoke that nostalgic atmosphere that's on the record when I perform the songs live? And so I, started...
So it has a particular sound, which we'll come to later.
Exactly. It has a particular sound, and it's sort of my own invention, together with the help of a man from a hardware store. And
yeah, well, I think we're
I don't
going
want to spoil it all, but
we're going to see the hardware store a little bit later. Yes. You're from Toronto. Is it a musical? This is Toronto in Canada, I should say. From a musical family at all?
I think you could say that, definitely. My father was an amateur musician. He was involved in a lot of musical productions of old Gilbert and Sullivan musicals that he loved, and he played a lot of records when I was young and played the piano. And I've got two brothers who also went into music professionally.
Bring this in at this moment, I think. Now, this is you on the left with your dad, isn't it?
I should have brought my glasses, but yeah.
And you said, we say Toronto, Canada. Yeah. This doesn't look like Toronto.
That will not be Toronto. That must be England. It probably
it's got to be.
Oxford.
I was going to say that's got to be England. So what's that connection?
Well, my parents are British.
Aha.
My father was born in London, and my parents both met in Oxford. And so, we were often back in England when I was young.
And they emigrated to Canada.
They emigrated to Canada in the 50s. And individually, actually, they weren't a couple at the time. But they knew each other, and then they kind of were like, fellow expatriates who ended up marrying.
Oh, that sounds romantic. And there's another picture you sent us. I love this.
I love that.
This looks dangerous.
It does.
This is a dangerous gang on the streets.
That is Toronto in the 1960s.
Yeah, well, I see the car in the background.
Yeah, absolutely. And that the Batman thing, we were trouble indeed. And when I see that picture, I think about how Batman, was a series that was running. It wasn't rerunning at the time. It was actually an actual series that ran once a week, I think on Tuesdays or whatever. And when Batman came on around 7 o'clock in the evening, the streets that were otherwise filled with children were completely empty. Back in those days, kids could play on streets,
Oh, no, you didn't empty the street. And sorry, one more, because I just love some of the photos you sent in, and this is...
Niagara Falls.
Well, yeah, I think we should explain that. This is not some strange sect. This was you underneath Niagara Falls.
That's right.
With your brothers?
All of my siblings, my sister at the very back there in front of my father, and then my two other brothers were in age, in order of age.
And this was at Niagara Falls. And I want to know, how did you get into music?
Well,
your family was musical, sure.
My family was musical, and there was a piano in the house, and there was a guitar. My father had a guitar, and he had it locked away in his closet. I used to have to ask for permission to be able to play the guitar, which was psychologically probably a good thing.
Right.
So it was something special and sacred that I would have to ask my father, can I play the guitar? And he would take it out of the closet and give it to me, and I would bash away on a Beatles songbook with, you know, those chord diagrams, and yeah, that's how I really got started.
If I could mention one name to you, I mean, what might have been inspirational musically, Mindy.
Mindy. Actually, I should say fairly, the names have been changed to protect the innocent by one letter.
Oh, well, we wrote. I can guess.
In case Mindy's out there.
This is. I mean, we must say this. I think you were 12.
Yeah, 11 or 12. I was in grade 7. I mean, it was big love. We were together for like 8 or 9 months, which was a long time. But, you know, it was like a whole school season.
Yeah.
And she dumped me at the end of grade 7. Later, it was explained to me that high school was coming up and she would be going into grade 9 soon. And, you know, she had to kind of pave the way for the big boys that would probably be making advances.
Yeah.
And I actually really was pretty heartbroken for a couple of years there, and that definitely opened up, you know, the possibility to having, you know, a little.
Well, you wrote a song.
I did. I wrote.
This was the first composition.
I hope you're not going to ask me to sing it, but I.
No.
I did indeed. Yes, I wrote my first heartbreak song for me.
And did this help? Did the music help?
I guess it probably did. Yeah.
I've had the same experience, but we're not talking about me. I'm just intrigued to know. But I'm now going to be a very father-like figure and ask you to pick up your guitar. We'll take the guitar out of the case. I'll unlock the case.
Yes.
There's the guitar.
Right,
and,
exactly.
I know you're going to give us a little snippet of something.
Yeah, this is one's for you, Robin.
Well, not just for me. It's for everybody out there, too, surely.
I know you're thinking I'm no good. And after all I've done, I guess you should. There've been some drinking, yeah, now I recall. But that wasn't me, that was alcohol. Oh, there is a sweet side to me too, and I really want to show it to you. So won't you give me one more chance? Can I have another chance? I could use a second chance to make a good first impression on you.
Wonderful, thank you. That's an impression of First Impression, the last song on Martin's album. We'll be giving away a couple of copies later in the programme, but now let's find out more about him and that gramophone as he showed us around his neighbourhood here in Berlin.
Singer-songwriter Martin Gallop has lived in Berlin for 6 years. One of his favourite spots is on the banks of the river Spree.
This is the sound of a city train pulling into the station, the brakes. Directly behind me here we have the windows of my studio, where I recorded my last record, Most Beautiful Song. The record's, I'm actually finished and I'm out of that studio now, unfortunately. It had an absolutely spectacular view of the Spree here. We're right at the banks of the river and the S-Bahn and the trains going by. Wonderful.
Martin first hopped on the train and hit the road at age 20. In Germany, he's recorded 4 albums.
You know how I'm always running behind, losing my way, losing my mind, leaving a trail from the hills to the...
He's also in demand as a producer and sideman, performing with the likes of German rock legend Udo Lindenberg. And he produced and wrote songs for German pop icon Annette Louisanne, with whom he was also romantically linked for a while. He lives in the Wrangelkiez neighborhood in multicultural Kreuzberg. He often finds things he can use in his shows in a corner junk shop.
I come walking down the street just like this and bang, there's a gramophone sitting right outside here. And the guy came out and was demonstrating it to me, and there was this gramophone music playing out into the street. Kind of magical, that moment. And right in that same moment, this other guy walks by, and stops and kind of whispers in my ear, "Hey man, you looking for gramophones?" Like he was selling drugs or something. I said, "Yeah." And so I got gramophones, man. I got really good gramophones.
Martin used one to create a unique analog effects unit. The highlight of Martin's recent homecoming gig, a duet with new partner Ibadet Ramadani and a special guest appearance of the couple's newborn baby.
On your face.
And here he is live in the studio with us. Only in Berlin. I got gramophones. I got gramophones. That was a world premiere, I think, for your daughter, who's 7 weeks old.
Yeah,
You got to train her.
Making me all sentimental here in the studio.
She slept. She was asleep then, though. You
Yeah.
got to get a bit of training going there. She mustn't sleep through her father's concert.
Oh, in this case, I think it's just as well.
Yeah. But you've actually, that's daughter very, very young, but you've got a 22-year-old daughter.
I do indeed, yeah, who I raised in Oldenburg, she was kind of the real reason why I stayed in Germany for so long. And she is now here. I am completely entrenched in German culture and German life, and she's going to move back to Canada, well, not move back, but has moved to Canada, where I grew up. She's studying in Toronto.
You say entrenched, and I'm not including your lyrics here, because your lyrics, you write in English, but your lyrics must obviously be your experiences here. But your music, to me, I've heard the whole album, and then your music sounds very North American, and yet you have German musicians on the album. So are there German musical influences, do you think?
I think probably. I mean, when I was a little younger, I was probably more influenced by German trends. Like, I was actually trying for a while to make Euro dance music and all kinds of things like that. But I think the longer I was away from home, the more I started to sort of look for my own musical roots. And you know that idea of that people who inhabit colonies, like migrants from France who go to Canada, or that expatriates, so to speak, are often more.
You become more Canadian, I become more British.
Exactly, when you're abroad, or you find more to that. So perhaps that's a.
So what were your first impressions of Germany growing up? I mean,
I loved Germany when I came here in 1983.
No, I mean before you came here. Before you came here, I'll just include this picture with it, because here you are in Canada.
Oh yeah.
But I noticed that that's very definitely a German car. We all know.
Yeah.
The Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah.
You know. What did you think of Germany before you came?
You know, I have to say, the only thing I really knew about Germany was through a television show called Hogan's Heroes. I don't know if you know Hogan's Heroes.
Yes,
it's an American television show about prisoners of war in Germany during the Second World War, and it just makes the Germans look like complete idiots.
Yeah.
And that was sort of all I really knew about Germany, which is pretty poor.
I mean, okay, so that's that. But you, as I mentioned at the beginning, you've actually been here for over half your life.
I know, and pretty much all of my adult life.
So tell us, why did you first of all come here?
Well, really, actually, a friend of mine told me when I was about 19, and not a very happy camper at the time. He said, "You know, Martin, I was just in Germany. You should really go there. One, they really love Neil Young, because I was sort of into this whole folk music thing at the time.
Who was born down the road from where?
Who was born down the road from me. And two, the girls over there actually, put out." So
nicely put, if I may say so.
So I decided I better go and check that out. And
So what happened? You came to why Oldenburg?
Well,
nothing against Oldenburg, of course, but people come to Berlin, they go to Hamburg, they go to Munich.
There is another very important figure in all of this, was a man called Bernd, who's from Oldenburg, who I met on the west coast of Canada when I was doing a street music sort of tour with a friend of mine. We traveled from Toronto right out to the west coast just by singing songs on the street, and we were young and crazy, and our heads were full of psychedelic drugs, and we met this man, Bernd, who'd been traveling himself for about 2 or 3 years, and I think he'd spent like a year in India, and he was all, spiritualized by his travels, and was full of sort of Buddhistic wisdom. And
from Oldenburg.
And from Oldenburg. And he was, spouting off all of this sort of guru wisdom to us, and I was completely swept away by his words, and he had this big beard, and he was, quite a mystical looking figure, and I more or less sort of followed him like a few months later to Oldenburg to get more of that. And when I actually arrived, he was really in a very different state. He'd been back in his home again in this little town, Oldenburg. He'd fallen unhappily in love with somebody there, and he was terribly caught up in whether he should phone her or not. And so our conversations weren't quite as lofty and spiritual.
Quite the guru
that day. No, but a wonderful man and a friend and a real catalyst in my life,
But I believe also that we can return to the female I believe there was a very special kiss in Oldenburg.
He took me to a bar, my first or second night in town, and we were having a conversation, and there was a woman across the room who seemed to be looking at me, and I was looking at her, and we were, flirting with our eyes for pretty much the whole evening. And then she got up to leave. She put her coat on and came over to me and just planted a big kiss right on my lips.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And this was the beginning of a love story with I don't know about her.
Well, actually, no. At the end, we didn't converse. He just left immediately, but we ran into each other again a few weeks later, being a very small town. And yeah, I mean, obviously that was sort of like, quite a welcome to this country.
And I know you worked then in a theatre group. Was this in German?
It was an English group. We used some German language as well. We had a couple of guys who were German in the group. Again, another thing about Oldenburg, a few weeks later, I met a man who also had a girlfriend in Oldenburg, but he was from California, Gary Edwards. And we got talking at a party, and he was saying, oh, well, we're looking for a guy who could travel with us and do lights and sound for our little theatre company.
Because you're a trained sound
I'm not really trained at anything, actually. You know what? I finished
that on television,
especially in Germany. Because here people are trained; they're qualified.
Yeah, that's true.
In Canada, I'd have no post-secondary education. I was. My parents are very academic, and I somehow seem to want to rebel against that. I don't know. I'm sorry, Dad.
Now, then you moved to Berlin about 6 years ago, have I got that right? No, I can't remember.
No, that's about right.
Yeah. And I you've been in Oldenburg, which is in the north of Germany.
Yeah.
Berlin's in the north-ish, it's in the east side. And your favourite part of the country you put in our questionnaire, which we send out, is on the Baltic Sea, the Dars Peninsula.
Yeah.
I mean, do you particularly prefer northern parts?
I don't know if that's really true. No, I love South Germany too, and Southern Europe and mountains and everything. But this particular landscape on the Dars, there's something about it. I always have very, very strange dreams there, nightmares too. Sometimes it just opens up.
Well, it's a bit of an artist colony as well.
It is indeed, right? There's what's the name? Aaron's Hope.
We're gonna let's have a look at the Dars Peninsula, which is right up in the northeast of Germany on the Baltic Sea, and it's Martin Gallop's insider tip should you come to this country.
60 kilometers of beach line the Fischland Dars Peninsula. It's widest near the town of Prero in the north. After a winter of sun starvation, many brave the relatively cool spring temperatures to come here and fill up on light. After the decline of seafaring in the mid-19th century, the local tourism industry blossomed. Many say this is one of the Baltic's most beautiful beaches. The town center is reached via a short promenade. Seafaring developed in Prerau in the 17th century. Houses that were once the homes of sea captains harken back to those days. They've been restored with typical colored doors, and many feature a nautical orientation point, the sun as a distinctive motif. The Seamen's Church is located on the outskirts of Prerau. Sailors once used its tower to find their way home. In those days, the sea took many lives. Seafarers' graves in the churchyard tell the stories of entire families. Inside, model ships made by sailors hang above the pews. Some were crafted by men who'd been shipwrecked to thank God for rescuing them from the deep. Prerau is a good place to start a venture into the national park, dedicated to preserving a large area of coastal wetlands known as the Vorpommersche Boddenlandschaft. Many areas of the Dars Peninsula are protected. Cars are prohibited. The only way to explore them is on foot, a bicycle, on horseback, or in a horse-drawn cart. Nature has been left to run its course in the Dars forest. In some places, the undergrowth is nearly impenetrable. Foresters say the original primeval growth extends over an area of 50 square kilometers. One popular stop is the lighthouse in Dars village, one of the Baltic's oldest and a symbol of the peninsula. Anyone who climbs the 127 steps to the top will be rewarded with a view far and wide over forests and dunes. But most people come here to see the wilds of West Beach, one of the area's main attractions. It's been shaped by the wind and waves, meaning its appearance changes daily. The Dars Peninsula is bordered on one side by the Baltic and on the other by a large lagoon or sound known as the Bodden. Sandwiched between the Sound and the sea along a narrow strait is Arendshoop. After a stroll through this charming seaside town and artist's colony, a lookout across the Baltic from the steep cliffs will really make you understand the attractions of the peninsula.
My guest is Martin Gallop, singer-songwriter, and that's one of his favourite places in Germany. And looking at that, actually, I can see why. What do you make of the music scene here in Germany? I know that's a big question, but you've been here for a long time and you've been playing music all that time. This land is a sort of treasure chest of culture, but doesn't seem to produce singer-songwriters like yourself. Why do you think that is?
I'm not really sure if that's true, Robin. There's a lot of German singer-songwriters emerging in the last 20 years, I think.
On the international scene, I'm particularly
thinking.
On the international
scene.
I suppose it's a language thing as well.
Yeah, probably. And I suppose, really, I mean, Germany suffered a terrible cultural loss from the Second World War. All of that creative energy that they exterminated, and I think too, the shame that followed in the German psyche that made people feel like, oh, German music is bad. All that folk music and what they call Schlager, sort of the German hit parade, was very frowned upon, and so I guess in a way Germans kind of sort of tightened up and couldn't, put out musically as freely and
and a lot of people, of course, left the country.
And a lot of people left.
Went into exile.
Exactly,
or
were killed,
I mean, 1930s, I'm thinking, not my era, but the music I know about a bit, Irving Berlin is Actually, he's not German, I beg your pardon, but he was Jewish.
Yeah.
And people like that wrote these classic songs. With yourself, you've been here a long time, you speak fluent German, and I believe you're thinking of doing an album in German, too.
It's something I've been toying with for quite a while. While I was working with Udo Lindenberg, a lot of the times he wasn't there in the studio, and we would be kind of preparing for his arrival by getting one of his songs ready, and sometimes somebody had to sort of sing the song just so we knew where we were in the song, so I was doing that quite often. And the producer later said, you know, there's something in that when you sing in German with your terrible accent. That's got charm to it, and he kind of got me going on the idea of doing a German record, and I have dabbled in a bit of writing in German myself. There is something online on the iTunes version of my record that is in German, and yeah.
Does it come? Is it more tricky? I mean, it's not...
definitely. You know, I wouldn't really want to do that without some help. You know, because although I think I have a really quite good grasp of the German language, a good vocabulary, and I can express myself well, I'm not in total control like one is with the native tongue.
Yeah, yeah.
So
you're very much a troubadour, one can say, and they have a reputation from travelling from town to town, breaking hearts. Have you had your own heart broken along the way?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I never let myself get as heartbroken as I was by that girl back in public school.
The first
the
love,
first cut is the deepest.
I can imagine it's a huge heartbreak.
Yeah.
It was the same thing, you know. I'm sure.
You know, I must say I love the subject matter for songs, and sometimes I, you know, get paranoid and think, oh God, it's, you know, I've got a record with 14 songs and 8 of them are about lost love, and but whenever I get worried about that, I return to one of my big songwriting heroes, Hank Williams Sr., who I think pretty much didn't write about anything else than having his heart broken.
Well, you either broke her heart or had your heart broken by Annette Louisan, who's a famous singer here, and we saw her briefly in the report at the beginning. But you're producing her now, and obviously, I presume, mates.
Absolutely. I mean, we started off working together, and we've ended up working together, and there was a period in between where we were romantically involved and very close, and we still are. It was, you know, a bit of a rough phase when we were separated, you know, for the first year or so, but no, I'm so grateful for that friendship. It's
Women are obviously your muse. We want you to sing now. Well, why? Hey, what's a better muse?
I know.
But I think this song most probably... It is
about a woman in a way. There's a woman called Mrs. Bowler, and she's an old woman who's, I'm sure, long past now, but she's the central figure.
Okay. Well, you get your... You start sort of getting everything together.
Yeah.
And while Martin is getting ready... If you'd like to win his CD, signed, of course, with his best wishes, he hasn't done that yet, but I'm sure he will. He's a nice guy.
Of course he will.
Drop us an email to insight@dw.de, and please include your postal address in case you are the lucky winner. The album is called Most Beautiful Song, and he says the songs get more beautiful as the album goes on. So this is track 4.
Yes.
Does this, Martin, mean that this is only quite a beautiful song?
I guess theoretically, I mean, it doesn't have to be chronological. The idea is that the songs battle it out against each other for which one is the most beautiful. And usually by the end of the record, the listener can't decide, so he has to go back and listen to it again.
It's over to you.
Yeah, okay.
Little Blue Song.
Little Blue Store.
Little Blue Store.
Yeah. Hello? Okay. Come, I want to show you a place I used to go to, the Bowler's Little Blue Store. Me running up those stairs, forgetting all my cares, opening that old screen door. The smell of old smoke and candy and soap and the creak of the dusty wood floor. Me running up those stairs, forgetting all my cares, Mama's little secret drawer. 1, 2, 3, 4 steps up the old porch steps. And hello, Mrs. Boulder, how are you? 5 rockets and a pack of cherry chews. Sweet tarts, sour grapes, all you could ask for a quarter could get you. If Mom would let you go to the little blue store. St. Teresa's schoolyard, best be on your guard, especially crossing alone. Those Catholic kids could kick the crap out of you good and make you feel very far from home. And down in the ravine there, touching Maureen's hair, undying love we would swear. Oh, but something's gone askew. Now I'm awfully blue, on my way to you nowhere. 1, 2, 3, 4 steps up the old porch steps. And hello, Mrs. Boulder, how are you? 5 rockets and a pack of cherry chews. Sweet tarts and sour grapes, all you could ask for a quarter could get you. If Mom would let you go to the little blue store. It's hard now to believe this once was all trees, creeks and fields and farms, till another shopping mall and subdivision sprawl covered over all its charm. Oh, but this old muddled mind can still see the sign, the blue roof and the blue screen door. Just over that hill, standing there still, the Bowler's little blue store. 1, 2, 3, 4 steps up the old porch steps. And hello, Mrs. Bowler, how are you? 5 rockets and a pack of cherry chews. Oh, but those days are gone now, forevermore. Mrs. Bowler's in heaven, and now there's a 7-Eleven where once stood a little blue store. Oh, Mama wanna go to the Bowler's little blue store.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful. It was a real privilege to sit here.
Oh, thank you, Robin.
Listen, I mean, it seems to come so easily to you, but I wonder about writing. It always intrigues me about writing songs because I can't.
You know, Robin,
is that the most difficult thing?
You probably just haven't tried hard enough.
Well, when I was a little older than 12, actually, yes, I did. I have written. I think many men, I don't know, women most probably as well, have written a song because of a lost love or a love or something, but I would never show mine to the world because it's terrible. But no, it's really, really wonderful. But is writing the songs the most difficult bit?
It's certainly, for me, the most rewarding part of it. When it's complete, there's a sense of, okay, it has a life of its own, whereas recording a song is always, in a way, sort of making it static. You have this version etched in stone, and it's just a version, but it's kind of stuck there in time somewhere. When you write a song and it's finished, you feel like, oh, I can sing this again and again, or even if I'm really lucky, someone else might sing it. It's kind of almost like, you know, having a child or something. It has a life of its own.
Because you do everything. I mean, you produce everything. And I want to show this picture because this sums up the recording process, does it?
Does.
Or is it something else?
No, it totally does, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's taken by a friend of mine, Michael Jungblut, who's always keen to capture the real Martin Gallop. He took the picture on the front of the record as well.
Now, we have a questionnaire. I want to ask you a couple of things about the questionnaire. Do you remember what the best-kept secret in Germany is?
The best-kept secret? That's probably me. As modest as I am, yeah.
But the best, and also, I just want to ask you about two things. The best thing about living in Germany, do you remember what you wrote?
I don't, actually. That was a few months ago now, Robin. Can you help me?
Most of the country is relatively uncorrupt. It's relatively open, transparent, very affluent society. If you're within its gates and can eke out even a modest living, you're in pretty good hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, is that how you feel?
Oh, yeah, I have so much to be grateful for. I mean, I know there are many people here who don't have those kinds of privileges, perhaps, who, you know, having a rough time, but for me and for most people that I see around me, it's really in a haven of...
Yeah, and I don't think there are that many. I mean, there are people obviously poorer than us, if you like, within Germany, but the social system seems to keep relatively keeps people afloat.
It's not as good as it was when I came in 1983. Back in that day when I couldn't believe it. I mean, every struggling student who'd never seemed to study anyways, you know, had their own car, and those were really the good old days, I guess, but...
yeah, but it's definitely... I do think you remember who you wrote down as the coolest living German. You've already mentioned.
That would have to be Udo, definitely, Udo Lindenberg, who's actually an artist who I adored back in my... in the 90s when I was together with a girl from East Germany, and she turned me on to Udo Lindenberg. We used to listen to him all the time. Wonderful guy.
We should explain him a little bit, because he's a megastar here in Germany. He's made over 40 albums in a career spanning 4 decades, a pioneer of German rock music, and quite a character too.
In Cologne, 18,000 fans are waiting for the party to get going. The star of the show makes a flying entrance in a Zeppelin. He clearly has a head for heights. Udo Lindenberg made this spectacular entrance 15 times on his last major concert tour.
It was incredible. The audience was fantastic. So warm, so loving. When I got out of the Zeppelin, it was like they declared their love for me. And I knew the place would explode. I was on fire, and so were they. It was going to be a big family celebration.
Udo Lindenberg sold out the Cologne Lanxess Arena for 3 nights. He sang 28 songs in each show and was on stage for over 3 hours. A German rock legend who's still going strong.
He's quite a character, isn't he?
He really is.
I get the impression, I mean, you know him, he doesn't seem to take himself too seriously.
That's his genius, really, actually. He, and I hope I've learned something from him, that he took me aside once and said, Martin, you know, because I sort of play the modest artist. He said, you know, modesty, Martin, is very unattractive, actually. Tell them you're the greatest. Yeah. And, you know, they'll never really think you mean it. They might or they might not know, and that...
Of course, he's had a musical written about him, which is a huge success here in Berlin.
I know. He certainly deserves it. I think he is a genius in his way. And,
talking about taking himself seriously, I'll bring this to another thing in the questionnaire, where you said, you say the Germans take themselves too seriously.
Did I say too seriously?
No, to take themselves seriously. But you said this as a positive thing, something the Germans do really well, and you said, take things seriously. Do you remember?
I do remember saying that, absolutely. And I remember very well feeling that when I came to Germany, because I wasn't happy in Canada when I was a young man. I was, you know, taking the psychedelic drugs and not drinking alcohol like most of the people around me at that age. and felt a little bit sort of outcast. And it all seemed terribly superficial to me, the Canadian mentality at that time. I see that very differently now. But when I came to Germany, you know, there were all these kids dealing with the whole burden of guilt from the Second World War, and politically active, and, you know, just serious. And I really liked that. And friendships were really, you know, if somebody said, let's have lunch together, they actually meant it. Whereas in Canada, it's, oh, we have to do that lunch thing, you know. But it didn't necessarily mean, you had to read the nuance, you know, of what that actually means in Canada. You know, when someone says, let's have lunch together, whether they mean, you know, see you next year or...
It's the same in my home country, too. And that's one thing I love here. I mean, you find...
They're sincere.
Yeah.
And which also can be, you know, they'll also say if they don't like something, they're very forthright, I think, in that way. Something to get used to.
And that can come over as being blunt.
And that can come over as being blunt. And
it's not.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Or is it?
Well, it kind of is, but is in a sharp way.
Yeah. A final picture to get you going again. This is your love, your lady, and showing this picture. Are you here to stay? Then is this home now?
This picture is taken in Canada.
Okay. You're living here. Okay.
Well,
okay. I didn't know that it was snow on the ground. Ice skating.
Yeah.
That's very German as well as Canadian, I suppose. But you know.
But well, I certainly.
Is this home now? Is this Heimat?
It sure does feel like it. Certainly here in Berlin. I feel really, really good here right now. But, you know, it's very subjective. Yeah. You go through different phases of life. And
I've got to stop you there. Thanks very much for being our guest. It's gone in a trice, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has.
Thanks very much, Martin, for being our guest. If you're interested in his album, write to us at insight at dw.de. Thanks for watching. Until next week. Bye-bye. We're still on camera. I misunderstood.